What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. Today is my weekly reading wrap up, just chatting about all of the things that I read this week, what I'm still working on, and what I plan to read next. If you missed it on Monday, I did drop my review for Sebastian de Castell's newest, The Malevolent Seven. The book is out now. You can check out my non-spoiler review to see if it's one that you might want to read. This was the first thing I'd ever read by this author, and I am excited to read more. On Wednesday, another review came out, this time for a short story collection that I read recently called A Bunch of Fives by author James Flynn. I've read another collection of his and really enjoyed it. I've got another couple of things lined up to read by this author, and I am really excited. For those of you that just have a few minutes to spare, if you could just watch that and critique it for me and see, is this something I should try to do, or should I just stick to my little mini reviews that I put on social media as I complete each story of the collection? Y'all let me know. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the books that I read this week. Except I did something new. I totally forgot because it's so new. Tuesday night, I had a live stream. It's the first of its kind. It's called Try a Chapter Live. I know that is an extremely original title, but it was all that I could come up with. It's taking the Try a Chapter challenge and crossing it with Say Yes to the Dress, except this time it's Say Yes to the Book. And what I did here is I got author John Palladino to come on the channel and read the first chapter of his book, which is The Trials of Ashmount. The second book in this series is coming out in a couple of weeks, and we wanted to promote the first one, just let people know, hey, if you like grimdark fantasy and you haven't heard about this amazing series, here's your chance to hear the author read the first chapter and do a little bit of an elevator pitch, if you will. But all of these videos I mentioned, I'll have them in the cards above, also in the description box below. Now, for real this time, let's talk about the books that I read this week. The first book that I completed, this was a very emotional end to the Book of Thrice Dead series. I'm just baffled how such a huge story was compacted down into these 6 books. It was so unexpected how this came full circle, what everything really meant, who these characters were, how their arcs ended. I walked around depressed for 2 days because it was over. This series has made a huge impact on me as an individual. Just the story and the scope of it, I cannot talk about it. That's the rough thing. I can't talk about it with you because it would spoil the series. And because it's not out yet, I'm one of few who has read it. So the poor author, Joseph Sell, woke up one morning to a slew of DMs because I just had to talk to somebody. Really, I just needed to make a whole bunch of comments about what happened and reveals and endings and I finished this series and there were so many things I loved about it. The character development, just the plot, the story, the scope, quotes, things that were said, and it really made me think, this is a series I might want to learn how to annotate, and when I reread this, have a system that I can say, okay, this was a major character development moment. This is a favorite moment. This is an important moment to the plot kind of thing. I think I would like to do that with my physical copy. Since I have the entire series physically, I think that might be my course of action for the next time I read the series, because there is absolutely going to be a next time. I did pick up the arc for Mother Howe by Craig Clevenger. I believe this comes out next month, maybe mid-June. For some reason, that's what's standing out to me. I posted this on NetGalley because the premise is this is about a young man who was watching the news one night. I want to say he was around maybe 15, and he recognizes a murder victim. It's a waitress at the local diner where he lives. The next night, he's again watching the news and is completely dumbfounded when they show who they have arrested for the murder of this waitress. His father. His father is convicted for the murder of 8 people. He's a serial killer, goes to jail. This is all covered in the first couple of pages. The bulk of the story is about how this young man's life is affected by the fact that his father is a serial killer. I thought that sounded really good Unfortunately, I didn't jive with the way that it was written. There is another POV of someone called Icarus, who I'm not quite sure, are they a demon? Are they a god? Are they an angel? I'm not quite sure who Icarus is, but it was just a really weird setup for how this being came to Earth, and they immediately get put in a mental institution because it seems that they fall from this really high altitude and they don't die. And then when we would come back to the young man, well, it just kind of aged him up really quickly, and suddenly he's around 30 years old, and it's just, it moved too fast through the formative years. I would have really liked some more development there, since that's what I thought it was going to be about, just his life. Rather, we just got a few snippets. I wasn't jiving with it at all, so I DNF'd it. At this point, I've dealt with book hangover because I finished Return of the Black Gate. A highly anticipated read turned out to be a DNF. I was struggling. I was very upset. I was like, I've got to have something. I need something really good to bring me back. So I decided to pick up one of my SBSFC finalists, and I went with The Last Gifts of the Universe by Rory August. I was in love by the time I read the first sentence. The reason why? Well, there's a cat in space, and I was immediately intrigued and thought, this cannot possibly go well. Characters are Kieran and his sister Scout. Scout is an archivist. Her job is to travel about space looking for caches. These caches contain all kind of information about perhaps an alien race. The hope is they have some kind of technology that Scout's people does not have yet that they can take back and learn from. The real payload they're looking for is answers. 700 years ago, when they got the technology that set them loose into the stars to start exploring, they found a graveyard full of dead civilizations. Well, perhaps it would be better said to say they found a ton of planets where civilizations had existed, but they are now completely devoid of life. Why? What caused this? Scout and the worlds that she comes from are concerned because whatever came for those planets could come for them. That's our main premise. There's also some things that Scout as a person was dealing with internally that I just got invested in. I am at least half, if not wholly, in love with an alien that I met in The Last Gifts of the Universe. And oh, how I cried. This book had me crying. I was, again, so upset it was over. I read it in 2 sittings. I would have read it in 1, but it was super late when I got started. I did not choose to put it down. I fell asleep and it fell over out of my lap, so that's what happened there, but my goodness, it was so good. Another book that I was sad when it was over. Those are all of the things that I have completed this week. What am I still working on? I'm actually about to complete something else I've been working on. That is the collection, the short story collection called They Hide by Francesca Maria. This was published by Bridget's Press this past April, and I've been working on it. I'm on the very last story. It's a little bit of a longer one. I started it late last night and I meant to get up early this morning and finish it. This was just one of those mornings I just couldn't get moving fast enough. But I will get that finished by the time I talk to you guys next time. It's messed up. This story, this last story that I'm working on, this was the kind of stuff when I was little, I wrote in like junior high and high school, this type of story. So the nostalgia is real, but this collection I've really been enjoying. It's so different. All of the stories are so different from one another. Some of them have an urban legend feel. Some of them have a folklore feel. Some of them take characters like Santa Claus and make them so you're going, I'm so glad that's not the story I was told as a kid. It's been a fantastic read so far. I don't see how something could turn around in this last story to ruin it for me. I'll absolutely let you guys know how that finishes out. I should have the written review up in the next few days because I do fully expect to finish it today or tomorrow. Let's see. I'm still working on Dracula Daily. I think that's going to run through November 7th. For those of you who have read Dracula, you're going, but Leslie, that book's only around 300 pages. How in the world is it going to last from May 3rd to November 7th? Well, you only actually get an email that coincides with an entry of the journal inside. Now, so far, it's just been Jonathan Harker's journal and a couple of letters between Lucy and Mina. So you only get emails on the days that it coincides. So you won't get one every day. I think there was a couple of days last week I didn't get anything at all. But I did get one this morning. So when I get done talking to you guys, I'm going to check in on that. But I've really been enjoying reading this classic in this format because sometimes the classics the way they're written is just too much for me to just sit and consume for hours at a time like I like to do. This way, by getting it piecemeal, I'm more patient with it. There's a lot of words used that I don't know what it is. I'll just pop over, you know, open up a Google tab and be like, all right, what is this? So I've been enjoying it, and I think you might too. I will do my best to remind everyone starting in April of next year to sign up so you'll be ready when the first email goes out on May 3rd. I am still working on The Fires of Heaven by Robert Jordan. This is book 5 in the Wheel of Time series. I am really close to finishing. I'm less than 200 pages away. I do think The Dragon Reborn and The Shadow Rising are better. This one just has a lot of people setting their pieces on their chessboard against others and just getting people in the right place and just setting some boundaries. Just a lot of intrigue and strategery, which I have absolutely enjoyed, but there just haven't been a lot of really big moments in this one like the previous ones. If you've read the series and you want to hear more, there's going to be a live show discussing this book May the 27th on the Literary Apothecaries channel. It's usually around 2:15 p.m. Eastern. I'll have her channel linked below so you can check into that if you want to join us. I'm also reading The Diviners by Libba Bray. I started this one and the first chapter was really good. I'm also vlogging it for my patrons. I decided to add that as a perk. Well, we're testing it out. We're gonna see how everybody likes it. Vlogging has always been something I have not done well because it's multiple check-ins and I typically just end up sitting down and doing it all at once, and I get lost in the book and I'll read a huge chunk and realize that I have forgotten to check in. But I've put it down in my calendar. I've made lots of notes about it. I think I've done good so far. And what I realized is I get to tell them my thought process as I read this book. The things that stand out to me, the things I fall in love with, because I think I'm kind of weird. There is some funny stuff in chapter 1 that I was like, okay, I've got 3 things that stood out to me, and one of them was really quite funny and probably has absolutely nothing to do with the story, but it did help hook me into reading more. We'll see how it goes. If we do this for a few months and my patrons really like it and I'm really liking it, then we're gonna keep doing it. Probably what I'll do is like the last week of each month, I'll put my TBR up in a voting poll for the patrons to vote on to see which one I'll vlog and then vlog it. After reading the first chapter, I think what we're going to be up against in this one is it's going to be a paranormal type of mystery. I believe a group of college kids in the 1920s have accidentally reawakened the spirit of perhaps a serial killer called Naughty John. Have no idea. They were messing with a Ouija board. I am hooked. And this is the last thing that I had to talk about that I am currently reading. So once I finish those, what I'm going to do then is I have a secret book that I need to read to finish up a video project. So I'm going to do that one. And another book that I can tell you about, I'm going to start my next SPSFC finalist. I think the one I'm going to go with is Hammer and Crucible. There were 4 of the 7 finalists. I've already read 1, so there were 6 left for me to read. And there were 4 that had really interesting book descriptions. It's been really hard to pick which one to go with, but I think as of today and as of time of filming, I'm gonna go with Hammer and Crucible. So stay tuned next week to find out which one that is. Thank you all so much for being here and watching. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. You get to read a good book, and I'll see you on Monday.